Hello and welcome to a lesson on estimating the mean for group data. In this lesson, I'll first remind you how we calculate the mean for a simple data set. And then we'll move on to look at calculating the mean when the data is presented in the form of a frequency table. And that will lead into the main objective of the lesson, which is to estimate the mean for group data. That's when we don't know any individual items of data, we just know the groups that the data lies within. To begin then, I have here a simple data set consisting of 10 items. To find the mean, we simply add the items together and divide by how many items there are. Divide by 10. So the mean is given by 5 plus 7 is 12, 12 plus 8 is 20, plus 8 is 28, plus 3 is 31, plus 1 is 32, plus 2 is 34, plus 8 is 42, plus 5 is 47, plus 2 is 49. So the mean is equal to 49 divided by 10. And that's 4.9. So there we've calculated the mean for that data set. Now I'm going to look at the same data set again, but this time I'm presenting it in a frequency table. So if you look at this data set, you'll see we've got one lot of 1, we've got two lots of 2, there they are there, 1 3, 2 5s, 1 7 and 3 8s, 1 2 3 8s. Now if we didn't see the data set lined up like that, if we just had the frequency table, we can still calculate the mean. We want to add up the data and divide by how many items there are. Well, the number of items there are is just the sum of the frequencies. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10. So the sum of the frequencies is 10. Now what does the data add up to? Well, we've got the frequency multiplied by the data. We need that to find what the data will add up to. We've got one lot of 1, so that bit of data is just 1. We've got two lots of 2, so what will they contribute to the total? 2 2s are 4. We've got one lot of 3, which is 3. Two lots of 5, so they contribute 10 to the total. One lot of 7 is 7, and 3 lots of 8 contribute 24. So to add up all the data, we've done these little multiplications, we just need to add these together to see what the data add up to. 4 and 7 is 11, 11 and 3 is 14, 14 and 4 is 18, and 1's 19. Put down the 9, carry the 1, 1 and 2 is 3, and 1's 4. So again we see that the sum of the data is 49, and the mean is the sum of the data, 49, divided by how many items we have, the sum of the frequencies. So again we get 4.9. And now we're ready to move on to look at estimating the mean for group data. Now estimating the mean for group data is a very common question on GCSE higher tier, and it's almost always worth 4 marks. So well worth getting to grips with. And we'll work through 3 separate examples. So here's our first one. You can see that we haven't got any data listed. All we know is there's 8 bits of data between 0 and 10, 10 bits of data between 10 and 20, and so on. So we can't calculate the mean, we can only make an estimate. But an estimate isn't a guess, and there's a set routine for going through to get an accurate estimate. What we do is we assume those first 8 items are going to average out towards the middle of that group. So we find the midpoint of each group. So let me put here midpoint. So the midpoint of 0 to 10 is 5. The midpoint between 10 and 20 is 15. The midpoint between 20 and 30 is 25. The midpoint between 30 and 40 is 35. And the midpoint between 40 and 50 is 45. And now it's a bit like we were doing in the previous example. Imagine these 8 bits of data were all 5. Then what would they contribute to the total? 8 lots of 5. So in this column, we multiply the frequency by the midpoints. And it's always the same actions we carry out. 8 times 5 is 40. 10 times 15 is 150. So all we're really saying is these 10 items here, if they average out at 15 each, they would contribute 150 to the total of the data. Now we've got 16 times 25. Well, 4 lots of 25 are 100, so 16 lots of 25 is 400. 4 lots of 35, well, 4 5s are 20. 4 30s are 120, so that'll be 140 altogether. And finally, 2 lots of 45 gives 90. Now, I'm going to estimate the total of the data by adding up this column here. So if we add those together, zeros there, 9 and 4 is 13, 13 and 5 is 18, 18 and 4 is 22, put down the 2, carry the 2, 2 and 1 is 3, 3 and 4 is 7, and 1 more is 8. So we're estimating that this data set would add up to 820. We need to divide that by how many bits of data there are. Well, that's just the sum of the frequencies. If I've got 8 of those, 10 of those, 16 of those, 4 of those, and 2 of those, altogether the number of bits of data is just the sum of this column here. 2 plus 4 is 6, 6 and 6 is 12, 12 and 8 is 20. Put down the 0, carry the 2. 2 and 1 is 3, and 1 is 4. So we have 40 data items. So our estimate for the mean is equal to our estimate for the sum of the data, 820, divided by the number of data items, 40. Let's pull up a calculator to do that. 820 divided by 40 is 20.5. So our estimate for the mean is 20.5. Don't round it. Give it to at least 1, perhaps 2 decimal places. Our second example, and this is an original GCSE question. The table shows information about the number of hours that 120 children used a computer last week. So we won't need to add up the frequencies on this question. We've been told they add up to 120. Work out an estimate for the mean number of hours that the children used a computer. Give your answer correct at 2 decimal places. So the first thing I need to do is work out the midpoints of the intervals, because we're going to assume that these 10 average out in the middle of that group, these 15 average out in the middle of that group, and so on. So the midpoint of 0 and 2 would be 1. The midpoint between 2 and 4 is 3. The midpoint between 4 and 6 is 5. And then we have 7, 9, and 11. Now then, to estimate what each of these groups contribute to the total, 10 of them multiplied by 1. So let's write in here frequency multiplied by midpoint. 10 times 1 is 10. 15 times 3. 10 3s are 30, 5 3s are 15, so that's 45 altogether. 30 times 5, 3 5s are 15, add a 0, that's 150. 35 times 7, and well, I have 5 times 7 is 35, put down the 5, carry the 3. 3 7s are 21, and 3 makes 24, so it's 245. 25 times 9, 5 9s are 45, carry the 4, 2 9s are 18, and 4 makes 22, so that's 225. And finally, 5 11s are 55. Now our estimate of the mean is going to be the sum of this column here divided by the sum of the frequencies. Well, the question told us there's 120 children involved, so that's the sum of the frequencies. So I need to add up these numbers here. 5, 10, 15, 20, carry the 2, 2 and 5, 7, 8, 9, 9 and 4 is 13, 18, 22, 23. Carry the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 730 divided by 120. And we'll use a calculator to do that. 730 divided by 120 is equal to, we want the answer at 2 decimal places, so it's 6.08. 6.08 what? Well, the units are measured in hours. Now this question is normally on the calculator paper at GCSE, and if you want to do all this arithmetic on a calculator, then you can. Moving on now to our final example. Fred did a survey on the areas of pictures in a newspaper. The table gives the information about the areas. Work out an estimate for the mean area of a picture. Well, this question is a little bit different in that if we look at the groups, they're not all the same size. So working out the midpoints has a little bit more involved. Halfway between 0 and 10 is 5. What about halfway between 10 and 25? Well, it's the average of 10 and 25. Add them together and divide by 2. 10 add 25 is 35. What's half of 35? 17.5. Halfway between 25 and 40, add them together. 40 plus 25 is 65. Half it, 32.5. So the midpoint is 32.5. Halfway between 40 and 60, that's more straightforward, that's just 50. And now, as always, we want the frequency multiplied by the midpoint to see what our estimate is for the total of the data. Well, we use the calculator for this, a little bit more involved. First of all, 38 times 5. Let's cancel first. 38 multiplied by 5 is equal to 190. And then we want 36 times 17.5. 36 multiplied by 17.5 is equal to 630. 30 times 32.5 is equal to 975. And finally, 46 times 50 is 2,300. Now, to get our estimate of the mean, we need to add up our estimate of all the data and divide by how many bits of data we have, the sum of the frequencies. So we'll use the calculator first to add this column. We've got 190 plus 630 plus 975 plus 2,300. And that comes to 4,095. And now I want to know the sum of the frequencies. So we've got 38 plus 36 plus 30 plus 46, which is 150. And now my estimate for the mean is 4095, my estimate for what all the data add up to, divided by how many bits of data we have, 150 of them. So we want 4095 divided by 150. 27.3. And again, don't round it to 27, leave it as it is with one decimal place, and it's in centimeters squared, the units this time, so the estimate for the mean area of a picture is 27.3 centimeters squared. Right, that concludes this short lesson on estimating the mean for group data. You'll now find an exercise with every type of question we've been covering.